Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the March UQR user group. For those who are new, this is a gathering for our users of all skills. We're here to help each other solve problems, share interesting resources and tips, and kind of just hang out. We meet the last Wednesday of every month, as you probably know, and we join via Zoom, but you're all on Zoom, so you all know that as well. At the start of each session, we also do an overview. And this week, we're going to be having a look at something called visdat. It's for visualizing your data sets. I have a link through to the visdat package on the UQRUG website, and I'll pop a link to that in the chat. Go. As well as the RMD file I'm going to be doing today. Now, I tried to get the RMD file to successfully upload to my Netlify page, but it kept knitting through to a HTML file, so I couldn't upload the RMD file as an RMD file. So it's just an R file, but you should just be able to convert that to an RMD once you've downloaded it. It was the solution I came up with. It's not great. So before we jump into that, what we're going to do is we're going to go through to our hedgedoc. So if you go to the UQRUG website, the hedgedoc is from this little document here. And the reason we go through to that is so that people can start signing in and putting their questions up on the hedgedoc. So I will also put a link through to that in the chat. There it is there. Hello. You get the UQRUG?
Yes.
Wonderful. Grab a seat. Sorry, it's a bit chaotic. There were lots of students in here that I had to kick out. None of them wanted to stay, unfortunately. Well, one of them did, but he had to go.
Oh, I'm not familiar with the buildings on campus, so I got lost. I pretty much go to my office and I don't go anywhere else. So,
well, welcome to the Central Library.
Yeah, thanks.
We've got a few people online as well.
Yeah.
But the way that we work is everyone jumps onto the Zoom, even those in person, mute your devices. That way, if you do have a question, you can share your screen.
Jump on. Okay.
If you have a question, yeah. But if you don't, well, I guess you don't need to. But if you do have a question, you're welcome to. That way, it's easy. Everyone can see your screen.
Yeah.
So we meet the last Wednesday of every month from 12 till 2. We start by everybody going to the hedgedoc and adding their names to this page. And then once everyone's added their names, they can add their questions to the page. We'll then move into the intro to an R package, which this week is visdat. And then we'll go through the questions that everybody has asked. So I'll show you where all the things are once you're powered up. So as you can see, Belle has already added their name here, which is wonderful. And so the way that you add your name through into the hedgedoc is by going to the link that I popped in the chat before, and I'll put it in the chat again for those who have just joined. Go to that link and click the blue pencil in the top right-hand corner. And that will then give you a preview of the document as it's seen in Markdown, as well as the output. So Markdown is a simple markup language that allows you to do some really basic, lightweight text editing. You know, it's not complex HTML or anything like that. If you want to make a title, you put one hash. If you want to make a lower level title, you put multiple hashes, and you'll see that the document live updates as you change it. You can make things bold by putting 2 asterisks around a thing. You can make links by putting things in square brackets and then round brackets for the link afterwards. For today's purposes, what you need to do is scroll down through to the table down here. So the table on the right is the gorgeous looking table, but you'll see that Markdown tables are pretty ugly on the back end. If I extend this out, we'll see it a little bit better. The way to add your name in here is on a new line, add 1, 2, 3, 4 bars like that. So that's the shift backslash, the little key. On my keyboard, it's above the enter key. Probably like that on yours too. And then put your details in between those bars. So put your name, where you're from, and what brings you here. So we've got a lot of people who are here to learn, people here to help. And Zoe is here just to hang out while coding, which I love. I love that. That's great because I also do that sometimes with these kind of groups. So I'm glad I'm not the only one. I go to the Hacky Hour every week, which is something run by the RCC. And I do the same thing there. I hang out there and do coding while other people are productive around me. For those interested, you can find a link through to the Hacky Hour link. If you go to the UQRUG website, go to community groups, scroll down past the UQ Python user group, you can see Hacky Hour here. So that's, if you've got R questions that you can't wait until the UQR user group and you think I might be able to help, you can go along to Hacky Hour, but yeah, some good links on there for further help beyond just R. All right, I can see a fair few people have added details in. I can see David. David has arrived just in time to see me pitching what they do there, which is awesome. Now you can see the table over here is broken, and that's okay. It's just because there is a gap here, and if I get rid of that, you see the table is now fixed. So that was why that was broken. So once everyone's done adding their names, or even before that, you can go ahead and add your questions in here. So you'll see I've got a template of how you can ask your questions. Simply go in here, replace your name with, you know, Nick, with your name, your brief question. What's a VCSV? How to open a CSV, and then add more details about your question underneath. And then people can go through and put in answers. Now, the advantage to this, the reason I get all of these kind of details is because I actually feed these questions through onto the UQRUG website, where you can see all of our past meeting notes for the last 47 events, and you can see the kind of questions that people have asked. So you can see the questions that have come up. And the reason we do that is because, well, it creates a bit of a database that you can then search through. So if you're looking for spatial help, we might have some details about how to get help with spatial questions. So we're not just doing question and answers, we're also creating a resource here. So go ahead, put your questions in there. And if you don't have any questions, that's totally fine. Yes. All right. So with that part out of the way, has anyone had any issues getting on that? You need.
I can see the website, but I can't see the markdown. So I mean, I can see the website that you're editing.
So you just have to hit the page there.
Okay.
And then you're in.
Awesome.
Good. And
Thanks.
you scroll down to the table part, and there it is. Just add the bars. Brilliant. All right, so I'm going to go out of that view, and we're going to go back up to our intro to an R package. So as I said at the start, on the UQRUG website, if you go to the home page and you go to the next workshop, you can also get to that through the events page. And you can also find our previous events as well. If you go through to today's one, you can see that we're doing visdat. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of what visdat is. And what you can use it for. So basically, it's so that you can get a really quick vibe of a document. So, of a data set. So it allows you to quickly picture things. So if we go to visdat, it's part of the R OpenSci universe. So OpenSci is it's like a community group of people who cluster together open science R packages. And you can find they've got a whole bunch of different packages that are supported through them. And you can have a look at those on the R OpenSci website. Now, actually, if you want to get involved in that, I think they've got like a help wanted page. So if you want to, be the owner of or the maintainer of a particular R package, you can find that there. People are always looking for help, which I think is kind of neat. But today we are looking at visdat. So visdat basically allows you to get a look at the data. Now, instead of going through their tutorial, I've made a little tutorial kind of based on theirs. It's effectively the same thing. And I've got a link through to that on the UQRUG website. So the zoom controls are just in the way, so I can't see what I'm trying to do. Just go straight back there. Yeah, so you can download the R file here, hit that link, and it'll download. Now, if you don't want to follow along with R, I've also at the bottom of this page knitted out the R document, so you can see all of the steps that we're going to have a look at today as well. You can open that in a new window too. But once you do download that, if you actually, hello, you're here for the R user group?
Oh, sorry, I didn't know you, can I take this?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't realize.
If you just download that and change it to an RMD file, it shouldn't make it unstable, and it should make it function as an R file. Sorry, as an RMD file as it's meant to be. As I said at the start, I had to do that because Auto kept knitting it into a HTML file, and it was being very, very annoying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw to my computer here, where I've got everything set up and working. So let's jump into that. Before I do, does anyone have any questions or thoughts or anything like that? Okay. So many Zoom pop-ups. All right, so here I've got the RMD file. You don't have to follow along if you don't want to, but I've got my code in here. So for those who are used to using an R script, this is an RMD file, which just basically allows you to put like markdown text in the normal sections, and then inside the code chunk blocks, you're able to put code. So it means that you can kind of, instead of just having comments, you can make it a bit more nice looking, and then, as I showed you before, knit it out into like a HTML file or something. So start by installing the visdat package, and then we load in visdat, and I load in tidyverse because I'm so reliant upon the tidyverse functions. I just do that by habit these days. So as I was saying, it's a package that gives you a quick glance at a if I go to visual, will that look a bit prettier? Can I still run the code? Yeah, okay. Just going to go to the visual mode just so it's a little bit prettier. So we're going to have a look at some of the functions of visdat, but I'm going to focus on some of the more useful ones, in my opinion. So if you're just trying to get like an understanding of the data that you're looking at, you're just trying to get a quick vibe of it, or if you're trying to check for any unexpectedly large values or strings that are out of place or NAs or things that you don't expect, you can use visdat to sort of check things before you start trying to clean and wrangle messy data. You know, if you've got a whole bunch of NAs in your data set, you probably want to try and get rid of them, maybe, or you want to clean up your data beforehand. But just jumping straight into cleaning can be problematic because you may end up like hiding problems that are there rather than finding the root cause of some of these things. So visdat allows you to sort of visualize things before you jump in. So the example that we have here is the air quality data set. So air quality is just one of the built-in, you know, data sets. And it's just got details about air quality, I think somewhere in the US. And this data set's useful because it's got some NAs in it. And so we're able to show what that looks like using visdat. So we can get a rough understanding of our data set by scrolling through. But let's have a look at what happens when we use the visdat function. So visdat will give you an overview of classes of data and NAs that are present in it. So it'll output a ggplot output. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. So you can see here that it kind of, it's sort of like a heat map, but it's also kind of like a stacked bar graph. So each of these points on the x-axis here are your columns. So we've got ozone, solar R, temp, month, and so on, just as we did up here, ozone, solar R, and temp, and so on. And it then colors it based on lasagna plot. Yeah, I'll take that. That's a good name. You can then see that the integers are red numerics are blue, and then any NAs are then highlighted there. That means you can very quickly get a vibe check of your data. You know, this isn't the final thing you do. It's just part of you use it in part of your processing and looking at, you know, maybe you've gotten readings off some GPS trackers and you want to get a quick vibe of the data. Are there a bunch of holes in it? You can check like that. I mean, you could use other kinds of, you know, quantitative metric checks to see how many NAs are in this data set. But this, I don't know, it allows you to look at the data and get a different feel for it. It also shows where in the data set they are, which is nice. The other thing you can do is also facet. So if we go to the help menu for visdat, so I'm going to press F1 on my, ooh, that unmuted me. I'm going to press function F1 on my keyboard, which is going to open up the help menu over here. So function F1 is a useful shortcut. So you can see here that visdat visualizes the data frame, and then we can see some of the things we can change here. So we can mix up the palettes, we can get details about and change the large data size. So the limitation in here, that's 90,000 rows, or rows times columns. So 90,000 cells. The reason it limits it to 90,000 cells is because once you get over 90,000 things you're trying to show in one of these lasagna plots, you run into overplotting and you can't see anything. So it limits it that way. So if you've got a truly huge data set, sampling the data or slicing the data would be the way to go. Yeah, so Christopher's pointed out that it's useful for showing how NAs align between the variables. So it's useful compared. So if you just did a raw count, yeah, you'd be able to see it lines up. So if you consistently had gaps in this across the different variables, that's a really good point. You could really easily see the cause of the issue, or give you a vibe. This is very much a vibe check data set function. Right, so I was saying we can facet it. So if we facet it by a particular column, that gives us, you know, the same output as we had before, but now it's faceted it by the months, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then that can also help us see what's going on. So we can see that there's, you know, ozone readings aren't as good in, what's that, June? And they're a lot more consistent in September. Cool, so that's visdat. Now the next one is vismiss, and it's similar to visdat, but it shows you the percentage of missing data. Now, initially I was like, why does this exist? It's kind of exactly the same thing we saw before, but with some percentages. So it tells you the percent that's missing from ozone, the percent that's missing from solar R, and then the total present and missing, which does make it slightly different to what we were getting above with visdat. Now, a big point of comparison, though, is if there is like just a couple NAs in the data set. So let's say we've got a large data frame. If we looked at that with visdat, it doesn't look like there's any NAs in this 10,000 row data set. When we use vismiss, it tells us that no, there's less than 1% missing from column 3. So there is a purpose for it, but yeah, it's checking for those real edge cases. It does have a purpose. VisCompare, I think, is quite cool. It allows you to compare two data frames side by side, and it will highlight the differences. Hey, are you here for the UQR user group? It's all right. You're welcome to join. But we had another convert. Yeah, so this, if you've got two data frames that are of the same length, you can highlight their differences. So I can imagine, I can see circumstances where this come up if you've got, you know, your data's been changed in some way, and you're trying to pick up roughly where that happened, or, you know, you've got two readings days apart or something like that, and you're trying to get a quick vibe as to where those differences lie. This one just creates a, it gets a, I think that's the chicken weights data set. Let's have a look at that one. Yep, chicken weights. So because this is a built-in data set, I can press function F1 on this, and it will go to the help menu for this one as well, which is always useful. And what we've done here is we've taken a random sample of the rows in the chick weights and just filled them with NAs. So if we run this cell here, it shows which rows are different in blue and which ones are the same in orange. So because we did a random sample, of course, it's very consistent across both feed and weight, because that's just where those NAs sit. But it really quickly shows us where those differences are. So this could be a really, really good way of both checking for errors in a data set, whether something weird happened, and also comparing things that are maybe temporal data, so long they're the same length. If the data sets, the data frames are different lengths, you'll get an error and it won't work. Cool. Any questions about the functions that we've looked at so far? Yeah, I didn't think so, but for those who come to my sessions often, that just means I'm thirsty. It's an excuse to have dead air. Cool. So the next one is visexpect. Now, I've put little tags on the ones that I think are quite cool. I mean, you might look at some of these and be like, no, Nick, that one was useful. But I think visexpect is really useful because you can set a threshold to check your data. So if you want to know if there's any particular outliers in your data set, you can use visexpect to say, from the data set air quality, check the columns to see if there's any that are greater than or equal to 25. So I'm going to go to the help menu for visexpect. So the arguments, you have to show the expectation. So it's basically saying where a variable value is less than 20 or is greater than or equal to 25. So if we run this, it immediately gives us an output. We can quickly see where are there things over 25. So none of the months are over 25 because it's, you know,
Impossible.
June to, yeah, it's impossible. Some of the days are, because obviously they are. Most of the, no, all of the temperatures are over 25, which either it's quite warm there or it's in Fahrenheit. It's Fahrenheit. But then we can see some of these patterns in the ozone, things like that. I think a really useful one is if you've got, you know, maybe there's like negative data or something like that. So like if anything is less than 0 where there shouldn't be anything less than 0, you can do a quick check. So there you go. No expectations true. Cool. There's nothing less than 0 in our data set. Good. I can move on. It's past that check for me.
Is it clearly using, I believe, ggplot2
Yeah, I
to
think so.
create these? Can you pass through ggplot2 arguments and elements?
Yeah, I think so.
Because this would be useful, but it doesn't necessarily help me narrow down where those observations are greater than 25. And so if you could put some sort of like, you know, the hover feature, whatever it's called, so you can actually sort of hover over the area of the
Type it
visualization
into a
and see
plotly.
and where it actually is. Yeah, that's just where my head's gone, because it's like, it's great if I can find things that are higher than 25 or whatever else, but it doesn't necessarily help me tell me what they are.
Yep.
Yeah, just a thought. I don't expect you to have the answer to that, but yeah.
No, that's I'm going to allow this derail to happen if everyone's okay with that, because yep, I want to see that. I don't know what it's going to do, to be honest.
And I don't remember the actual argument off the top of my head because it's been too long.
Potentially not, because it potentially might not work because
Should I just Google this?
it might not work because of the way that visdat sort of changes the data frame. It's not truly the previous data. But let's have a look. So let's go back to the previous one before. And then we should just be able to pipe that into a ggplotly. I don't know if this is going to work, but let's see what happens. I feel like it should have worked by now, but the fact that it hasn't given me an error is giving me potential false hope. But maybe we'll come back to this. Oh, cool.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
Yeah,
It's not useful yet, but you could potentially.
Yeah, you could potentially augment it
Right, so
somehow,
that would be
or yeah. See, the issue is that it's
Only showing you the actual data that's
because
present in the
it's
viz.
augmenting it. So
okay.
what that looks like I think we can change it to be data underscore visexpect. I don't want to load plotly. Because yeah, it's actually changing the shape of the data frame to create those plots. So yeah, but I think that's a fantastic suggestion. So we just need to get in touch with whoever maintains this and tell them to do that. Or figure out how to do it and then push that through to their GitHub repository. Anyway, that's visexpect. Now, the other thing I like about visexpect is it means that you can check for bad strings. So it's not just for so we're using a binary operator here. So we could say equal to, greater than, etc. We can also use it for checking strings. So we could say, do any of these things equal, I don't know, in quotes, dog or something like that, and see and highlight where the dogs are in the data set or something. It also means we can check for bad strings. So we could use like a bad string library to check for issues. Now you could just use this to clean the data and remove any NAs that are in quotes, but you might hide problems. So you want to be able to find the issues and then resolve them rather than just resolve them. So in this instance, let's say we have a data frame that has, it has a good NA in it, but then it has a bunch of NAs that have accidentally been created as strings and won't be treated as an NA value. It'll be treated as a character value, which we don't want. So what we do is we create, a common NAs checking thing. So maybe it's NA, N space A, and so on. So if we run this, what it will do is it will look at our data frame, that MS, so this one, and it will say, return values that are in this common NAs field here. And so what it does is it gives us a bunch of true or false. So we can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 NAs that are from our common NA list. And that's these ones here. Obviously, this is a tiny sample data set, but if you had a huge data set, you can really quickly check, are there issues in this data set that I need to fix? And where are they? And again, going back to what Christopher said, if you can see that in there, like, oh, it seems that every second row, there's one of these kind of NAs, then that tells you there's a problem with maybe the way your data's been recorded. Or it's only in February that we're getting this, oh, there's an issue. Whereas if you just fixed it or deleted those, then you're not going to see that problem and it might come up again. So you don't want to hide issues, you want to see them. And so that's the advantage here is we can see where the issues are. There's not a pattern here, obviously, because it's just a randomly created thing. And so, we'll just clean it up and move along. The next one we've got is viscore. So this is a correlation. I don't think it's very exciting. It didn't really interest me, but I included it because it's part of the things. It just shows you how correlated the different columns are. So wind has some correlation with ozone. So temp has some negative correlation with ozone. Never the biggest fan of correlation in general, just because I don't know. Sometimes it's useful though. So I included it in case people want to see correlation. I'm happy to hear someone say, no, Nick, this is why it's useful. So that's why I included it. The next we've got is vis value. So this shows you the relative distances in your data. So I'll show you and then explain it because I think it's easier that way. I quite like this. I don't think it's the most useful, but it gives you, again, a quick vibe of your data set. So, you have the days of the month on a scale from 0 to 1. So 1 being, from 0 being 1 and 31 being 1 kind of thing. And then it lets you see where those patterns are. So we can see the days make sense, the months make sense. And then here we might be able to see where outliers sit in our data set. We can see it's particularly warm here and particularly cold here, but nothing that seems like a glaring issue. Like it makes sense for it to be that way. But yeah, so you could, if an entire field was sort of at this 0 mark and then you've got, a bright part somewhere, then that suggests that there's a huge outlier in the data set that you can quickly see this way. Now, if you do have a non-numeric data, you will get an error because it can't give you a value. of a character, so it can't put that on a spectrum of 0 to 1, so it will throw an error. The way around that is to use something like dplyr's select. So in this case, I've brought in the Gapminder data set. For those who aren't familiar, Gapminder is just like a data set that has a bunch of socioeconomic details in it for the world. And what we can do is pipe Gapminder into a select function, and we only keep those that are numeric, and then we visualize that. So if we run that, you can see that it has stripped out the country and continent columns and left us just with the GDP, life expectancy, and so on. So here's an example of where you can see there's these big outliers in the population, but that's like India and China. So it makes sense. Yeah, that's right. So anything that's categorical. So if you have numeric data that happens to sit inside strings, you could convert it to, use the convert to numeric function. But yeah, so you can see we've just had to remove out country and continent there for us, so they can view it. Otherwise, it will throw an error. There are a couple other functions in this suite that will also give that same issue if you're using character data. And again, you just resolve it in the same way using that select where is numeric.
Are you guys using that chair? Yeah.
Go for it.
Sorry.
Chairs are popular today.
Yeah.
Cool. So the next one down is the vis binary. Now, again, this is one of those ones where I'm not sure how useful it is. But again, I put it in so that people could tell me why I'm wrong and why it is useful. Basically, this only works on a binary data set, and it'll show you where the zeros and the ones and the NAs lie. I guess it means you can do a quick check of that. Visdat wouldn't do this as well, because it would just tell you that, oh, they're either NAs or integers, whereas I guess this does tell you where the zeros and ones are. So yeah, if you've got binary data sets, it'll allow you to do a quick check of those too. And find, again, those same kind of patterns visually. And then visguess. I know I really like visguess. It will take a stab at guessing what kind of data is inside of your columns. So basically, if you've got a whole bunch of numbers that are in strings, so they should be numeric, but they're characters. Or do you have a bunch of integers that are in numeric classes? I mean, that doesn't really matter, but it'll highlight those. So here we've got a messy vector that gets created. And then we create a data frame from that. And then we're going to visualize it. Let's have a look. As you can see, there's dates inside quotes, and there's numbers in quotes, and there's NAs in quotes. It's an ugly data set. So if we just looked at that through visdat, our data set looks fine. We've got a few characters. They're all characters with a few NAs, no worries. But by using, so that was visdat, but by using visguess, it takes a stab at what's actually in your data set. And so because this is the messy data set, we can see there's characters, there's logicals, there's doubles, there's integers, all sorts of things. So for those, so that true and T, those are the logical values because it's true or false. That's the logical Boolean binary operators. Oh, strange. Yeah, and so we've got doubles. Those are values that have decimals in them. Integers are ones without decimals. So yeah, if your data set looks like that, then you're probably in trouble. Yeah. It's interesting that, so one thing it hasn't done is it's not identified these as dates. So it's not leaned into trying to guess exactly if that's a date or not. Now, the reason I highlight that is because that is a character class, and that is a character class that visdat can highlight. So it can highlight if something is a date or not. We've got someone who's wanting a
Hi,
chair.
sorry to interrupt, would I be able to borrow a chair?
Go for it.
Thank you very much.
You can also come and learn about R if you like.
Honestly, I probably need it.
Oh, we meet every month. We're
Really?
here until 2. So if you've got R questions, don't take the chair and sit. Take a chair, but don't take it away.
Geez, you're such a
I've
good
got a quiz
salesman.
to do, but when do you meet?
The last Wednesday of every month from 12 till 2.
Is this a club or something?
It's the R user group. Yes, the UQI user group.
How do I join?
Take a
Turn
turn.
off.
When's the next one?
End of April.
Sorry.
If you Google UQR user group, you'll find us and you can contact us
Okay. Beautiful. Thank you.
there. And bring any questions you've got.
I actually will.
Excellent.
Thank you.
That's why we meet in person. Alright. So, yeah, so you can see why I like VisGuess, because it takes a stab at things and allows to find issues you may not find any other way. So if we do the same with the Gapminder data set that we had open before. No loop for break. What? I don't know what that error was, but anyway, it's taken a stab at guessing what our data types are here. Nothing very interesting. I mean, it's highlighted that most of the population is double, but some of them might be integers. That's weird. That's something that might be worth checking. Life expectancy, they're mostly doubles because life expectancy is going to be, you know, most of them are going to have this. But what it's probably found is that there's some that are whole numbers. So it just happens to not be a decimal. This one, on the other hand, seems a bit odd. I think it's probably just a little bit wrong. It's probably like the population of India is so large that it's like, is this an error? And you can see here that this is at row 500,750, probably around row 700 or thereabouts. So kind of answering Luke's question before about can you hover over to find out where it is? I guess if we piped this into a plotly, it'll tell us what row it is.
Yeah, I'm working on it while being distracted by the chair issue.
I didn't think chairs would be the main seller for us today.
No, so that's why I'm contacting our spaces. People will be like, hey, there's chair issues.
Ah. So if we put this into a GG plotly, we should be able to hover over the row, find out what row the issue's in, and then have a look at the data set that way. It's a bit of a roundabout way, and I would rather do it a different way, but that should work. Trying to think if there was another data set I wanted to show. I don't think there is, but hopefully that shows. I don't know if this will necessarily be useful to all of you, but the main reason I brought it up was sort of to kind of encourage you to have those methods to check your data before you do things, because often people come in and they're like, you know, why am I getting this error here? Why is this happening? And after a bit of exploration, there's an NA somewhere they weren't expecting it to be. And so it's breaking an average. So if you put an NA in a mean function, it'll break it. But if that's hidden within another function, you may not realize why it's breaking. So it can be useful to do that sort of thing. So if anything, my main reason I brought this up was to encourage you to have a look at your data before you clean it and have a look at it before you analyze it. Because otherwise, you know, you might be smoothing over things you shouldn't smooth over. Yeah, but it also, you know, maybe you've got a weird digital signal in your data set, and this would help you find that as well, because it'll show you those outliers. It's not the be all and end all. It's not the main thing that not the only thing you'd use in that process, but yeah, hopefully it's useful. I think that ggplot is going to take too long to load, so I'm just going to go into Gapminder. We're going to go to row 700-ish. Probably around there. Oh. Why is it saying that there might be? Yeah, I think those are the two outliers that it flagged there, and it probably just thought that, oh, maybe this is actually an error or something. Maybe this should be a decimal because it breaks the pattern of the rest of it. So, but it doesn't. It's just the population of India. Still not loaded. Cool, that's visdat. Any thoughts or questions? Does anyone think, oh yeah, that's useful and I'm keen to use it, or? Could be useful, awesome. Yeah, I think it just in those very initial stages when you're first looking at some data that you've collected, just to sort of get the vibe, because sometimes that's the hardest part, because you're like, well, I don't know. I don't know what my data looks like. To be honest, I might use it when I'm doing consultations with people when they're like, here's my data set, please help me fix it. I was just like, well, let's do a vibe check. Cool. Well, I'm going to stop sharing on that one. I'm going to go back to sharing the main screen up here. Oh, that's awesome. You had an example of cleaning data from electron microscope would have been solved. Would have picked up the difference in the measurements. Awesome. That's cool. There you go. Yeah. So I think just integrating it as part of your initial steps when looking at a data set could be quite a good approach there. If you do want that data that we played with today, you can download it from here. But I'll be real, a lot of what I showed today is pretty much just lifted directly from the visdat tutorial. I mean, you used pretty much all the same things, but I sprinkled some things in there as well because I found there were some things that they did. I was like, why use that at all? So, you know, hopefully my writing is useful there, but really a lot of I just lifted from them. So my thanks go to the creator of this, Nicholas Tierney. So, you know, Nick did it regardless, so it's fine. Cool. So that's the overview today. We'll jump now through to the questions, which there weren't any at the start, but we'll see if there are some. But before I do, I've got a couple of things to talk about. One is that I'm really keen, and I think I said this last time, but I'm really keen to see other people present some things. We had a couple of guest presenters last year, and I have one lined up for later on this year doing some in RSpatial. So we've got a guest who's going to come over from the geospatial share community group. So they do all sorts of geospatial things, including using R for geospatial analysis. So that's something that I've got lined up for later in the year, but I currently don't have anything lined up for April. So if you've got ideas, I'm really keen to hear them. Otherwise, I will go back to I've got like a list of like 15 that I'm just randomly plucking from. This was one of those. I'm really keen to get other people involved though, because I don't have all the answers, and I want to learn from you out there, whether or not you're an expert or you feel like you're not an expert. I didn't know how to use visdat previously, so yeah, share. If you do have things you want to share, reach out to us. Send an email to training@library.uq.edu.au. I'm also keen to get more people involved in running of things, if anyone wants to volunteer with that side of thing, because I will be away later in the year as well, so I won't be running things. Luke will potentially pick things back up, but always happy to get more involvement from the community so that this group is what you want it to be. Yeah. On that note, Luke's going. No worries, thanks for sticking around. Something I didn't mention at the start that I have been mentioning every other time is that this is being recorded. Yeah, it is being recorded. Cool, just double checking that. And I am uploading all of the different recordings up onto the web. If you want anything not included in the recording, do let me know. I do edit them because I know I have long pauses. And you can find all that on the UQRUG YouTube page. So you can find, you know, if you missed the web scraping one or the creating resumes with CSVs, you can find all of that as well on the UQRUG YouTube page. I try to get them up before the previous month. I do have ones from last year that I just haven't had the opportunity to edit yet. So if anyone feels like doing some video editing, you're welcome to. But I will try to get on top of those eventually. But the other thing I do is I use the YouTube breaks, so you don't have to watch my big long welcome every single time. You can just jump straight into the overview and into the drop-in questions. If anyone has any requests or suggestions or changes around those, let me know. I'm really open to feedback and making sure this group is what you guys all want it to be. But with those sort of announcements out of the way, let's jump over to the hedgehog to see if anyone has any questions. No questions. I had the suspicion that there may be no questions. Did you have a question or you just came along to hang out?
I actually didn't know that this existed, and I took an interruption in my PhD. I don't think it existed before, because this is like maybe a year or so this group has been around.
So Stefan launched the group in 2020.
Oh, okay. I don't know how I didn't know about it. Anyway,
That's the classic thing. Why didn't I know about this earlier? We did that for so many things in so many different ways.
I have so many questions, but on lots of different topics. So I guess I mean, I thought there'd be more people in person here, but I guess I just wanted to meet other people using R and sort of bounce my questions around, because I do have quite a few of them. It's kind of hard to put them in a specific question, or I could you do consultations as well. If,
Yeah,
the library, okay.
So I'm going to use this opportunity to spruik some things. So how did you find out about us?
Another student.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Word of mouth. It's the only way you get people's attention, because you send out a newsletter. There are too many newsletters. If you go to the library, if you Google UQ Library training, that's the team that I'm in. You can find that on the library page. We go to library services training, and we run the UQR user group, but we also provide training in R and Python.
Yeah.
And Vivo, all sorts of things. If you can't wait till the 8th of April to join our R class, which, I mean, I think it's quite convenient actually. We do have all of the resources under the software training resources link on the right-hand side there, where you can find all of our R manuals and also videos for most of our sessions. So I'll pop that in the chat as well. Yeah, lots of resources available. But I mean, if no one else online has any questions, then I'm happy for you to ask questions, and you have plenty of people. Like, everyone's always got an opportunity to learn new things with R. So that's why I highlight, like, hey, I'm pressing function F1 to open the help menu here, because a lot of people don't know you can just press function F1. They think you have to use the help function or, you know, question mark, type it in, whereas you can just do it immediately, and it saves a lot of time and effort. So you might have a question that you think is very basic and simple, but other people online don't know, which is, I think, the big advantage to these kind of sessions. You ask stupid questions, but are not at all stupid. So please ask away.
Yeah. So, oh gosh. So I suppose I was interested in coming to the R user group to learn. I had no idea about this package, and I mean, that could have saved me some time manually constructing those types of plots. But also I was hoping to, I guess, meet other people using R who might be familiar with different statistical methods, given that R is a statistical software language. Because I have some questions about generalized linear mixed effects models. So I guess, yeah, I was hoping that maybe through the user group, I could find people who know who I could ask about those questions. Which I don't know if that's possible, but.
Everyone always has questions about generalized linear mixed effects models, and no one ever seems to have answers.
Unless you go on Stats Exchange and there's lots of different answers, and then you feel more confused.
Yeah. So he said, I love working up with no questions of my own. And just to see what other questions are. Yeah, always learning things incidentally. Christopher is a statistician and may be able to answer, so there you go. You might have the answer to your question.
Oh,
Or you
well,
just,
I have,
just kind of like,
I have a,
GLA
I have
help.
to say, I didn't come exactly with my question prepared. I need to like, it's a bit complex. And I would not want to waste someone's time while I randomly recall facts about my question off the top of my head. But it's to do with over dispersion or under dispersion in a binomial logistic mixed effects model or generalized mixed effects model. But yeah, that's not really going to help anyone with that level of detail.
We go. Is that, what's the function in R for that? Is it just GLM or is it LME?
There's a few different packages that you can use. So one is LME4.
Wow, last time someone asked a question on, we've definitely had questions in the interim on that. Just seeing what questions people have asked in the past. All right, Christopher's shared some things. Online textbook for mixed models. So this is using mixed models in R. I don't know, that kind of feels like that's that's kind of your question. Should I use it? When should I use it?
Yeah, I think my use of it is fine. It's just that I'm having issues with the link that I'm using. But GLM and TMB is the other one that I've been using. Yeah. I'll have a look at this book though. I'm not logged into the Zoom though, so
I'm going to put that into the Hedge doc.
thank you.
So I started kind of typing in the things that you were asking.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So if I just drop a link in there, it's now an accessible link.
Yeah.
But I could also, what is this? Mixed models with R. If I type in square brackets. You can get some markdown happening. Make it pretty. There you go. It turns it into that. So it's not answering your question at all, but that's how you do markdown links.
No, that's good. I mean, I'm happy to do more reading on it.
And Zoe has recommended the Ladal resources. So the Ladal is the language and data analysis laboratory, which potentially isn't what you're asking, but they've got a bunch of tutorials looking at a variety of different R questions.
Yeah.
Statistics, I guess, is what that potentially falls into, looking at regression. Effect-based models. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see mixed effect models there.
That website is very familiar, like the banner. So I must have come across it in the past. So I can probably find it and post it in the thing if that helps.
Ladal's predominantly based here at UQ, run by Martin Schweinberger. And a variety of others. But yeah, they've got some really good R tutorials, like from the very basics of R all the way up to doing viz, statistics, which I mean, statistics is often the hard one that people, it's why people use and start using R, but it's the hardest part of doing things in R. Sometimes, depends on what you're doing, obviously. But yeah, it's also obviously got things about text analytics, case studies, and a variety of different things. So yeah, it's worth checking out Ladal. And Zoe has put a link in the Hedge doc. Look at that. Oh, there is one. I missed that. Yeah, there's a mixed effects regression. So was that just on the regression page? Yeah. Oh, of course. Because under regression analysis, you have the mixed effects regression. Yeah, that's very sensible. Thank you, Zoe, for putting that link in there. And so, yeah, there you go. There's 2 separate guides that might give you.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome.
And if you have questions about those or issues with those, let me know or get in touch with Martin directly.
Okay. I didn't realize that that was a UQ initiative. That's
Yeah, it's
even better.
there you go. Get in touch with Liddell directly. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
These days, whenever I see a Twitter link, I wonder is it still active? Because mine's not. Lived on this page last year when trying to finish your thesis. Yeah, no, Liddell's great. Now, before we move on to that next question, I said Christopher's asked, was this issue with over dispersion?
Under dispersion.
Under dispersion. Do you have more specific links based on that information, Christopher, or?
Okay.
Hasn't had that as an issue, but hopefully those 2 resources will get you somewhere along the way. I will tidy up these notes that I just put in here myself, but cool. Thank you, everybody. We'd have to research a solution. Well, the next R user group will be at the end of April, so that will be April 29th is when the next R user group will be. So if you want to formulate a question.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Have a crack with the different guides,
Yeah.
and then when or if questions come out, bring it along next month.
Yeah, perfect.
Keen to see where it goes, because everyone's always learning useful things. So I'm sure you just asking that question, this unformed, not really super sure question, has just reminded me to tell people about the wonderful Liddell resources that are out there, which I forget to do. I should really put a link to Liddell on the user group website. I'm going to give myself a note to do that. So yeah, all questions are welcome here.
Hello,
All
Nick.
right.
Long time no see.
Hi, Carl. How you doing?
Hello. At the bank right now, Bank of Queensland. Sorry, I joined halfway at 12:30.
It's all right.
And I found that and today's the package that you covered. It looks very similar to a package. It's called Amelia. I'm not sure have you used it before. Amelia package, and
Amelia.
with the Amelia with the mismap function, it also tells us it also tells us and displays us the NA of an entire data frame. Yeah, is one of my go-to tools every single time. Whenever I analyze data, I use Amelia mismatch. Yeah, but what you show us today, really very comprehensive, and it looks like having more functions than this Amelia package.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I will be trying to use that.
I'm just loading it up on my computer at the moment. What was the function that you said?
Amelia,
Function?
mismatch. If you go Google, you will see this the graph of this function, of this package.
Mismap. Okay.
Yeah. It's my go-to package every single time. Whatever project I do, data science or data analytics, I always use this to check and find my missing values.
Oh, okay. A missing mismap. So very, very similar to that other one. Cool.
Yeah, very. Not sure have you? Have you used it before? It's somehow in my memory that you had covered it before in previous sections.
Potentially, Amelia is familiar.
Perhaps you had
Didn't
came
mean to
across
rhyme
this
that way,
package.
but visdat also refers to another package that I hadn't seen before, but I thought it was the one that you're going to called NAR.
Oh, all right. How do you spell it?
NANIAR.
NAINAR. Okay.
NANIAR.
NAINAR.
Yeah, so it's another one for showing those missing bits. I'll put that in the chat as well.
See, okay.
But basically it means that you can do more accurate and thorough exploratory analyses of missingness.
All right. Interesting to know.
Uh,
Package. It's a function name or package name.
Oh, cool. So, you know, when you plot something in R, it removes rows that have missing values. This gives you a geom missing point, which will then actually display the missing.
All right.
That's fascinating. So if it's, you know, if it's missing if it's
I used
missing,
to plot this graph myself, though. So if you have a function, then I can make it do it for me.
oh, that's kind of cool.
Very cool. Miss point.
And then also actually show you those sorts of things. Show you where the NAs sit and where they're not sitting. Just plot the NAs. Yeah, cool.
Do you mind to share this link, please? GitHub link.
Yeah, I put it in the chat. I'll also put it into the Edge doc.
I did it.
Put it in here for now.
For the chat.
Cool.
Yeah, another thing for me is that please add me into your monthly Python user group, please, as well.
All right, I'll send. So that's being run by Cameron, who's another of the technology trainers. But I'll wait.
Oh, not you? Yes, please.
So yeah, for those who are interested, there is also the Python user group, which is run in very much the same way as this user group.
Yeah, interesting.
They meet the first Thursday of the month.
First day of the month. Okay.
Next Thursday.
All right.
It could be in person only, but we've now moved it
Okay.
online and in person just to have you know, greater accessibility to those who can't make it.
Yeah, cool. Just one more question. Is there any Power BI also user group here in UQ library?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I joined the UQ one, some with a name called B or P or something, the business operation. Forget it. It might be irrelevant to UQ library.
I'll look into that. I don't. If anyone knows of any Power BI user groups, let me know. We'll pass that on to Car.
Oh, good. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
No worries. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, good to see you again, and I will join next month, hopefully. Yeah, the office here is very kind enough for me to join the section.
Yeah, of course. I've just realized that Jane asked a question up there that I missed before. So we might have a look at Jane's questions now, looking at plotting two lots of data on the one graph, plus splitting the graphs into smaller time lots. That does sound potentially simple.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you want to ask your question, Jane?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I've got it's probably, I'm very basic with R, as you remember probably. But I have data that I'm trying to it's data with regards to a trial that I'm doing with the heat stress in dogs, and I'm looking at activity and muscle temperature, and my activity data is every minute and my muscle data is very intermittent across those periods, which whenever someone takes a data point. So I'm trying to combine them to have a look at them together to see whether or not activity influences temperature. Can I share my screen and show you the type of data that I have?
Please do. I actually had your data in mind when I was showing the visdat stuff, because I remember doing all that data sorting with you, and I think it could have been potentially useful there.
Oh, okay. I was sorry that I was late, actually. So
That's all right.
my bad.
I'll send you a copy of the video recording.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you, because I'm still struggling. Let me get this share screen thing happening. So I apologize in advance, everybody, for my very basic code. All I can manage.
Christopher left just before you asked the question. I feel like he would have insights, but go for it.
Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we've got the core temp activity match.
Yep. And so if I show you what I've, I'll just zoom into this and show you. So this is a type of data that I have. So I have as parts of my data. So activity is measured in this weird bar point thing, and it goes up to 200, 300. And it's measured every minute, and it's continuous monitoring over a number of days every minute. Whereas muscle temperature is very intermittent monitoring done manually throughout that period of time. And so what I'm trying to do is put the graphs together in a way that I can see them, put them together so I can see them together. But I've tried a bunch of different ways to get them on the same graph, but because the axes are so different, it just doesn't seem to work. You know, I don't know how to do it. So
are you wanting to put like the temperature
I'd
and
love to,
activity on top of each other for the same day sort of thing?
yep, for the same day and time. So I've tried
You could have 4
splitting.
graphs instead of 8.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if you had to split it up and you had, I don't know, 16 graphs, it wouldn't worry me as long as I could get the individual muscle points related to activity on the one graph, if that makes sense, or on 2 graphs together where the x-axis time was the same.
So
That
it
makes
can
sense.
be done.
Yeah.
So it can be done in ggplot. Now, the reason I pause as I say that is because so ggplot is called ggplot because it's based on the grammar of graphics, and the
Right.
grammar of graphics is a book that sets out, you know, the exact. It kind of breaks down creating a plot into some core elements, and it's got these very specific foundations of how you should construct a graph. And one of the things that they say is you should not have 2 axes, 2 x-axes, 2 different y-axes on the same graph. So it's not super simple to do in ggplot, but it can be done. Like people will go, cool, I don't care that you shouldn't do that. I want to do that. And so people have made it work. So
Well,
it's
I don't mind having the 2 graphs like one above the other, and I've certainly done it. I've certainly done it with my other data just to get trends, but this is more specific because it's down to like a real small time points. So yeah, I don't mind if I can work it the way that these graphs are. I just need to try and split them up in a way that I can make them line up, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Does anyone else have experience doing that?
So I've just put up my basic, just how I've formulated the graph.
All right. I'm going to grab just some random data from the net and then just have a look at that.
Okay.
I just Googled and there was a question on Stack Overflow and Hadley Wickham replied saying it's not possible in ggplot too. But I'm sure it is possible if you hack it, but Hadley.
Yeah. And that's why I gave the answer I did, because people
Yeah.
will respond that way saying, no, shouldn't. I don't think it can't be done. It shouldn't be done.
Yeah.
Because you run into overplotting there, and it's not, you know, you could make the different axes whatever you want them to be, and it's not necessarily a good way of displaying data.
Yeah.
But sometimes sometimes it's useful to do that. It's like, I know I shouldn't do it, but like I need to just visualize, like, because you're not necessarily using it to, you know, make a specific statement. You're using it to kind of check things, aren't you?
I'm just looking, yeah, to sort of really trend data and sort data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting a vibe for the data, which is again is why I thought of you when we're talking about visdat. So
So even if I could just work out a way to make my x-axis the same and split it up into 6-hour lots or 8-hour lots, that would work. Like split each day into 8-hour lots. And I've done that when I've plotted separately and split it like every so many minutes, break it every 6 hours in other plots. But I just can't work out how to do it now.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. If that's okay.
Yep. I'll stop sharing.
I don't know how well this is going to translate to your data, but I just went to this website here, which is looking at creating a dual axis with R and ggplot2. And basically we load in the data, we create a data frame here, which may or may not translate well to your data. But it's basically, you've got date data, and this is temperature, which you also have temperature, but instead of price, it's activity, right?
Yep.
We create a plot out of one of them, plot out of the other, and we add them together. And this is what you currently have, right? You've got your temperature, and you've got your price, and you want them to come together.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is they create a second axis using this function here, this second axis function, which is from ggplot2. So the fact that Hadley Wickham says it can't be done might just be outdated.
I looked at the date, it was 2010. So I'd say that's fine.
Enough people like, but I want a second axis. So they built one. That's the good thing about open source stuff.
Further down, there's an example of a climatogram that has precipitation on one y-axis and temperature on the other, and then a bunch of people saying this is actually really useful. So there are, I suppose, examples where it makes sense.
So what this does is we create a ggplot using our data. Our x-axis is day, the y-axis is temperature. And then you scale those axes. So using that, you set the name of the first axis to first axis, and then you use second axis to add a second one. Now, you'll see that there's this, you need to have some sort of function of transformation on it, because you're gonna have to scale one or the other of them to fit on the same thing. So in this case, they do a scale of, what's that, times 10?
Yeah.
Because, you multiply it.
Yep.
Is that right? If we run that, that will create just an empty cell. So you can see this is the first axis, and this is the second axis, which is times 10. Now that's just setting it up just to test that it works. And then we actually then create our data. So we need to set the coefficient. So realistically, you could have set the coefficient up here and then multiplied it that way. So you only have to set it once. And then you then create the plot. So the plot, in this case, you just set the x-axis to day, and then you create two geom lines in the same plot. But this one, you have to divide it by 10 to scale it properly. And then here, you then create the scale y continuous. So we're creating a continuous axis again. Name the first one. Second axis is multiplied by the coefficient. So that way you can just change that number to flex it.
110.
Second axis. So if we run this, we then get first axis at a scale of 9 and second axis at 90.
Yay, this is what I need. Yay.
If we change this coefficient value to like 50 or something, it would then update the graph to that. Now, you can see that we've massively changed our data by doing that.
Yep.
So make sure it does make sense as to what you're doing when you're doing that multiplication, because otherwise you are.
Yep. And my data is already a factor of 10, like 40 to 400. So it's already in that same realm. So that might work. And I've also got temperature and humidity data. Can you post that? Yeah, that R graph, that thing. Yep, please. Thank you.
There you go. It's now in the chat, and I will also put it in the questions. Yeah. So you're not the first person evidently to run into that same issue. So I've also put it in there as well.
No, that's perfect. I can use it for my environmental data too. So yay, because otherwise I've been exporting and putting it into Excel to get my data to run one on top of the other. So yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yay.
Yeah, no, it comes up fairly often because you can just do it in Excel. Why can't you just do it in ggplot? Well, can now.
Thank you.
That's all right. It's a good question. What was the question about splitting? Because you were saying also splitting them into time lots.
Yeah, so if I so right now, because I've got data that runs over, say, 7 days, and like I said, some data is continuous. I've got data that runs every 10 seconds over 7 days, and some that runs every minute, and some that's intermittent. So if I figured if I could split the graphs into like 8-hour blocks, the data would be sort of manageable probably. So rather than just splitting it via day, the graph per day, doing a facet wrap, say on day, I would do it on every 8 hours or every 6 hours.
Yeah. I don't have an immediate answer, but it feels like you're wanting to do a facet on hour, but I imagine currently the hours are not discrete hours. They are like hours and minutes and seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have to turn it into a factor somehow where you split each thing into its own factored area, or simply create a new, it's probably a more elegant way than doing this, but like, yeah, Zoe is wrote what I was about to say. Perfect. Create a new variable that gives you value to each block of time and create a facet wrap on that. So
Okay, yep,
um,
yep, that'll work.
what is
Thank
it?
you.
Is it like, is there a function that's just like hour? Yeah, Lubridate's got an hour function, and that'll,
Yeah, or I could even break it into, I've done it before by breaking it into minutes, but I wasn't sure how to work that into a plot.
yeah, so it should, hour should, I think it just extracts the time, the hour from a date. Get or set hours component of date time. So I think that's what that should do.
Okay, lovely, thank you. I'll try that too.
We have a time data set to test that on right now. Carr has also posted, yes, from the book R for Data Science, Hadley Wickham explicitly mentions that dual axes is not good practice. But nah, obviously there's places where it is good practice. I think it's just, it's like over plotting. People can tend to lean on these things too much, and there's probably better ways to plot your data in neater, cleaner ways. But sometimes you need to have 2 y-axes, and it makes sense.
I do agree.
Thank you.
But I think it's like a lot of things. Like you need to learn the rules so that you know when it's okay to break the rules. And it's, in this case, I think it makes sense to break the rules, but don't always do it. Yeah. Just encourages you to think about it a bit more. Cool. Thanks for bringing those both up.
No, thank you. That's a great help. Thank you very much, everybody.
So look at, I'm just going to directly create, I'm just going to copy what you wrote, Zoe, because I think that's pretty much it. Create a new variable that gives a value to each block of time. Yeah. I do have that right, don't I? That's what the hour function with Lubridate does. It pulls out the specific hour. No worries, Carl. Thanks for coming along. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Well, I think that might be everything. Any other questions? Anyone want to put their hands up to run a session or not a session, run an overview, you know, a 15-minute to half-hour overview? Maybe we could have someone give an overview of how you could run an R script on the HPC. There might be someone here that could give that overview.
There might indeed be someone who could do that. I'll have a word.
I think that's I think could be useful because it's an intimidating thing to get started.
Sure.
Obviously you have whole courses and things around that. I don't know how easy it would be to give a simple 15-minute, half an hour, 45-minute if you're pushing it,
Oh,
sort
easy.
of introduction to it. But at least people will know what they could do, maybe like a taster or a sample sort of thing.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, because I imagine there are lots of people who don't know what HPC means, let alone how you would get started with doing those other things that you could do with it.
Yeah. And it's become apparent that the university sort of has lost its appetite for buying exotic workstations, powerful workstations for people. So yeah, there's a bit of a stampede on at the moment joining HPC. So yeah, this would be a perfect timing actually.
Cool. Yeah. Well, so for those who don't know, David works at the Research Computing Center here at UQ, where they have the high performance computers, the HPCs, and we can run jobs on them. It's especially useful when you've got either massively huge data sets or really complex models that you'd have to sit running on your laptop for like 24 hours and pray that it doesn't crash while it runs it. Run on the HPC and, you know, minutes. I don't know. Depends on what it is, but
yeah, I mean, where we tend to win is that we've got a lot of machines, and they're not necessarily much faster than a high spec workstation, but we've got many of them, and you're not even allowed to buy one the way budgets are at the moment. So a lot of people are coming over, and we've just launched a new capability where people can, you know, use RStudio and do their software development in an interactive graphical environment. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I think that'd be I could easily fill half an hour. In fact, you'll have once I start talking, it's the difficulty is getting you to stop talking.
cool. Well, we can line something up for later in the year at a time that's more convenient for you to run that. But yeah, cool. Let's get that happening. Great, thank you. And so yeah, that offer is extended out to everybody else. If you know, if you're wanting to give an overview of something, you found a cool package, as I was showing before on our OpenSci, because I think it's quite neat what you can do on that website. Again, I need to hide the Zoom controls. On this website, you can see all of the going to do OpenSci. Yeah, you can have a look at all their many packages. You know, maybe you've got an API access through to some of these different things like the Bureau of Meteorology. You could give an overview on, you know, how to pull that data using the Weather Oz thing. You know, there's lots and lots of things. You don't have to be an expert in these things to give people a vibe of how they work. Obviously, some of these are a bit more complicated than others, but yeah, if you've got an overview that you could give, I'm really happy to hear it, because I've always liked learning new things. So please send an email through to us at oh yeah, there it is, training@library.uq.edu.au if you are at all interested. But it looks like we don't have any other questions. So I guess we might wrap things up a little bit early today. But yeah, if anyone has any other thoughts or questions or suggestions or anything like that, always reach out, and we'll, you know, make this group what we need it to be together.
Excellent.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nick.
See ya.
Keep